Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging right into the heart of a city that really truly lives and breathes, New York City. It gets called this endless canvas of dreams, lights, and stories, right? But, how do you actually capture its essence? So, for this deep dive, we've got some really fascinating material. There are excerpts from New York, a canvas of art and life, and also an artist's own reflections, his personal take on capturing the city's soul. Our mission really is to understand how fine art, painting, and photography, well, how they don't just show New York, but maybe grasp its spirit. And, what makes the city such a muse. Get ready for, I think, some surprising perspectives on a place you thought you knew.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, looking at this material, especially from the artist Somkiat, he sort of invites us to look beyond, the obvious stuff. He sees every street like it's a brushstroke, every shadow is like a photo waiting to happen. It's a challenge, really, to how we see a city like this. So we'll explore how these different art forms, painting and photography, how they kind of come together to make a maybe more complete picture of this constantly moving city, and maybe how his vision fits in with other artists who've tried to pin down NYC.
That's a really powerful way to put it. The city itself as a dynamic piece of art. Silek, he hosts the Sky Diary podcast, right? He
Right.
really pushes this idea that New York isn't just static buildings. He feels it's, well, profoundly alive. What does he actually mean when he says the city is constantly creating? How does he, articulate that?
It's a really immersive view he takes. He describes skyscrapers not just as, well, structures, but like they're monumental sculptures. And the neon lights. They're not just lights, they're like flickering paint strokes on this huge dark canvas. Even the people, the millions of people, aren't just crowds to him. They're moving stories. Each one adding a unique thread to the whole city narrative. So it's not just a backdrop, it's an active participant, almost like a collaborator in the art itself, which is quite a different take from, say, the kind of quiet solitude you might see in an Edward Hopper painting of the city.
Hmm. That idea is really compelling. New York as this living, breathing, artistic thing. And he doesn't just see it as one big picture either, does he? He talks about layers. Seeing New York in layers, which, I mean, that feels incredibly intuitive for such a complex place. What does that layered view actually reveal for an artist trying to capture it?
Right, and this is where it gets, I think, really interesting. He suggests the depth isn't just, physical distance. Think about, like, the skyline at sunset. For him, it's not just a view. It's like a painting in motion.
Yeah.
Colors actually melting into each other, constantly shifting. And then that idea of layers, it extends really beautifully into photography, too. He points out how reflections on glass buildings become living photography. They capture what's in front, but also what's behind the viewer, creating this complex, evolving image within an image, almost surreal. It really changes how you think about light in the city environment.
That's fascinating. It makes me think of Georgia O'Keeffe, right? How she captured the sort of abstract power of the skyscrapers.
No.
Or Alfred Stieglitz finding that poetry in the steam and shadows of early 20th century New York. Salek seems to bring a similar depth, but maybe with a more dynamic, immediate lens. So following his idea, when night falls, what happens to a place like Times Square in his view? How does that transform?
Well, it stops being just a busy intersection. For him, it becomes this huge, spontaneous art installation. Light and sound aren't just there, they're actively colliding. It's like a curated experience, almost, if you look at that artist's eye. So it's less about just getting through the crowds and more about witnessing this overwhelming symphony, this visual, auditory chaos that somehow kind of comes together as something beautiful.
Okay, this all brings up a really important question, one that Salek actually tackles in the source material. Why does he think fine art, painting, and photography, why do they belong together for New York? They're very different mediums.
Yeah, and he gives a really insightful answer, I think. He believes painting has this unique power to sort of slow down time.
Right.
It allows for real reflection, a deeper dive into the nuances of a scene. But photography, conversely, by its nature, it captures the exact heartbeat of a moment, a fleeting one. It's all about immediacy, right? That blink and you miss it pulse of the city. And he argues you need both for New York because the city itself never stops. It's always moving. So you need the contemplation painting gives you, and you need the instant capture of photography to really get its character.
So it's not just about balance, it's about getting a more complete picture, a fuller understanding. One gives you that deep, lingering look, like stepping back, taking it all in.
Exactly.
While the other grabs that raw, fleeting energy.
Yeah. It's a bit like trying to understand a complex piece of music, maybe. You need the whole symphony, but you also need to appreciate the individual notes, the rhythms. It makes me wonder How does this kind of dual approach resonate with, your own experience of art in a city like this? Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, yeah. What really stands out from this deep dive, I think, is how a city isn't just, buildings and crowds, not some static thing you just look at. It's this dynamic interplay, light, rhythm, color, all waiting to be actively seen, interpreted, reimagined even. It's kind of a reminder that art isn't always just on a canvas in a gallery. It's often right there, in plain sight, if we just know how to look for it.
And that leads us perfectly to that provocative thought Somkiat leaves us with. He says, when you look at a city like New York, don't just see the buildings or the crowds. Try to see the light, the rhythm, the colors. That is where art begins. Which really encourages you, doesn't it, to find the art in your own surroundings, in the everyday stuff. It's about cultivating that artist's eye, really, no matter where you happen to be. And for those of you who are interested and want to explore Somkiat Salek's work, which includes both paintings and photography inspired by New York, you can visit his studio online at www.clickgstudio.com. That's CLICKG forstudio.com. He's a professional photographer, also known as Mr. G, based up in London, Ontario. Specializing in capturing, well, beautiful and unique moments. You can also find more about his professional photo and video services at somkiat.ca. That's SOMKIAT.ca. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep looking at the world with an artist's eye.